how to sell on relationships. Before we get down to how to sell on relationships, let's first understand how are people, most people selling today. A lot of people are going out there, they've got a great product, they've got some amazing success stories, a lot of people need what they're offering, everything is good. But this is how people are selling. They're approaching someone who they believe could be the right fit. This is happening at networking events, through phone calls, through cold calling, through lead generation, etc., etc. They're approaching people who they believe would be the right fit for the kind of product they have. And then they're talking to the person, they're explaining the value, they're explaining the benefits and the success stories, etc. All of that is good. But this is where the problem begins. That the moment the person in front of them, the prospect, ends up saying that, hey, I'm not interested in buying this, or ends up not giving positive feedback or not showing interest, the person who's selling moves on. They just move on. Now hold here, pause for a moment and understand that there is a massive amount of time, effort, and money that goes into coming in front of someone and being able to speak about your product or service. And if you just move on, all of that money technically goes down the drain, and if not, it gets added to the customer that you actually acquire, increasing your customer acquisition cost, which is not smart business. But there is a better way to sell, at least in networking. Now, the way to sell in networking is to sell through relationships. And how do you do that? You do that by approaching someone and first honoring that person as a human being before identifying or trying to identify that that person is a prospect. Now, you do that by approaching someone and introducing yourself and talking to them about them, not about you. Yes. Traditional selling requires you to talk about you, your product or service. Actually, it doesn't require you to talk about you, just your product or service. But relational selling requires you to first build a relationship. And you do that. You build the relationship by talking to people about them. And when you do that, when you take interest in them, and this is not interest taken strategically, this is not pretend interest, this is genuine interest. Genuine interest is when you are interested in the other person, irrespective of the outcome, irrespective whether that person is going to buy from you or not buy from you. And when you are genuinely interested in the other person, you talk to them and you care about them and you try and add value in their life, in their business, in whatever they're trying to do, then what happens is that the barriers start to go down. And when the barriers start to go down, magic starts to happen. They start to care about you. There's a quote that I've heard that says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So the moment people get to understand that you care about them, the barriers go down, and then this next stage is that they get interested in you. And when they get interested in you, they ask you, what do you do? And then when you tell them what you do, they receive that with a lot less resistance. And that is exactly what you want. So now, number one, you did not even have to sell yourself. They asked you about you. And because there is already likability in place, because you honored them as a human being and your intentions weren't to be transactional, the barriers are down. And when you introduce yourself to them, when they ask you to do so, and if they happen to be the right kind of prospect for you, they will come to you automatically and say, hey, I might be interested in this. Can you do this for me? This is who we are. This is what we do. We want to talk about this. We want to understand. And that is where the game changes. All it takes is just a little bit of patience, an intention to build relationships, even if people are not willing to buy. And hey, you need to understand something, that when people like you, likability is a very powerful force. When people like you, they either buy from you or they sell for you. So when people like you, even if they don't need to buy from you, They will go and talk about you in their network. Ask yourself, how many times have you done this? How many times have you spoken about someone in your network to someone else with a lot of conviction, shared the number, asked them to give them a call, made an introduction, maybe even taken people to the meeting? How amazing would that be? And all that requires is a small shift in mindset to go from selling to selling through relationships.